and please don't, can we refrain from asking questions until the end of his presentation? And you could also send me using your chat box if you have any question, and I can ask this question later on to Fritz. And if your question is not answered, I'm pretty sure I have your email address, and I will send your question to the regional office, and I am sure that they will get back with you with your answer. So let me check if Fritz is, while we're waiting for Fritz, can all the VAC member please introduce themselves and what organization you belong to, all those good stuff. And I know I'm gonna get our communication director and also our legislative director is on our webinar as well. Okay, Bob, did you wanna go next?
You're mute. Bob, you're muted.
Sorry,
Mute here. Sounds like you're unmuted, sir.
Yeah, I'm unmuted, but we wanted Bob, Chuck, Jerry to introduce themselves. They're all muted.
What's the last names there on the names there? You can.
Hey, I'll go ahead and start if you can hear me. I'm Jerry Wilkins. I represent the National Guard Association of Washington. I've served 32 years as a military vet involved in community activities here in Lacey and Olympia area.
Good morning. I'm Bob Wallace. I'm the rep from the American Legion Department of Washington.
Good morning. My name is Chuck Wharton. I am the AMVETS representative.
Good morning. I'm Jerry Pujic. I represent the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the Fleet Reserve Association.
And I'm Larry Alcantara, representing the Marine Corps League. I think that's it for our VAC members. And if you send questions to Lisa, she is on Elfie's computer, so you're going to have to send it to Elfie when you go into chat, and it will say chat everyone, or you can pick a specific name. Remember to send it to Elfie's computer because that's where Lisa is working from today.
Lisa will be right back. This is Raphael. She's contacting Barrow right now as we speak. A minute.
Great. Well, for those that are here, I'll entertain you for a second.
Larry?
Yeah.
I see we have Lynn Ty now on, and he has to be unmuted so he can introduce himself.
And he should be unmuted now.
Len?
Up there. There you go. There you go, Lynn.
All right. Video?
Mm-hmm. All right. Hey, thanks, everyone. Glad to join the town hall. I'm replacing Doug Pfeffer, representing the Mission Continues. Love to be a participant and partner with you all in this committee. I am a former Army person for 10 years, and I get out of the Army as a captain in '97. Currently, I am staff here with the Mission Continues, engaging veterans in community service projects throughout all the western states of our country.
Nice to see you aboard, Lynn.
Thank you, sir.
Great. So while we're waiting for Lisa to return with our guest speaker. I just mentioned that this is the second virtual town hall our committee has hosted. We usually travel around the state and present town hall meetings in person, but in this COVID-19 environment, we had to make some changes, obviously. And so this is our second time out. Last time we used a different technology and it was a little more cumbersome. So this is the first time we're trying Zoom. And I'm real hopeful this technology is going to work out. I'm really looking forward to hearing Fritz. In our first town hall, while we had a number of subjects covered, the questions that came from the participant were largely on VA claims. And that's the reason the topic today is VA claims, because that seems to be where the most interest lies right now in relation to how the COVID-19 environment is affecting VA claims and what kind of policies our regional VA has pursued. So. While we're waiting for Lisa, if you have a question during Fritz's presentation, there's 3 little dots at the top right hand of your screen. You can hit that and select chat, and then select Elfie and send your question to her, and she'll try to bring that question up to Fritz. Or just wait till he's done with this presentation, and during our Q&A period, we can cover that. The Governor's Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee is a 17-member volunteer committee appointed by the governor. And the membership and operation is controlled by the RCW and Washington Administrative Code. We are primarily charged with identifying veteran needs and assessing whether or not department policy are meeting those needs, and then advise the governor on an annual basis of our assessment. So we identify veteran needs first. Veteran leaders, veteran affair leaders, are appointed to the board to begin with. So they're coming in not as novice, but pretty much as experts. A lot have been serving as certified veteran service officers. You know, many have served on the state and national level representing their veteran service organizations. So they bring a great deal of wealth and different perspectives to the board. So a 17-member board. Primarily, we tap into current veteran needs through town halls such as this. We present information and we get feedback, the Q&A session, and that guides us in terms of where the greatest needs are, at least the most vocal needs veterans are having. Also, from the information we gather, we carry back from our own veteran service organization. So that's a little bit about the background. We're happy you've joined us, and I think that Lisa's ready to go.
Okay, everyone. Apologies, Cesar, you're on. And I made you a co-host so you can start sharing, or I could share the presentation you had sent me. Or Allison, are you on?
Hi, good morning. This is Cesar Romero. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Okay. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm just going to go on mute for really quick.
Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, Lisa. I'm sorry, things popped up in front of my screen and I couldn't hit the unmute button.
Okay, that's okay. So I know, sorry about that. We're still, even though we've been on this pandemic for 8 months, going on 8 months now, 10 months, and we're still trying to get acclaimed to the different modern technologies. So take it away, Caesar.
I am, I'm just getting set up. I apologize.
It's okay.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, I am just following up to make sure that everyone from my regional office is here. I apologize, Lisa. I was under the impression that we were going to be starting at exactly noon.
No, that's okay, Caesar. Go. We, yes, we're good.
Okay, I'm just getting everyone set up and then we'll be good to go, but we are ready.
Yes, we are.
I apologize, everybody, just getting set up.
Just as a friendly reminder, just want to welcome and thank everyone for joining. We did reallow the chat box there, so if you do have questions, feel free to share that. I know we were able to kind of get rid of that troll, and we had some trolling comments here earlier in the chat box, but we don't want to stop you all from being able to share those questions and concerns. So just wanted to remind you that if you do have a question and that you'd like us to either respond to or privately as well, feel free to share that in the chat box. And just as a friendly reminder, we have a full list of a lot of these resources and contacts that you'll meet here on our website, www.dva.wa.gov. And we just invite you all as well to reach out if there's any particular speaker that you see today that you'd like more information from, more copies of the presentations if those are available. So.
Okay, Caesar, you're on.
Okay, just seeing if our director is on. Okay, I apologize, folks. So we're just, again, I apologize. We were under the impression that we were going to start at noon, but my name is Cesar Romero. I'm one of the two assistant directors with the Seattle VA Regional Office. Also, joining me today will be our director, Prits Navaratnasingam, as well as Michael Payne, who is one of our 3 assistant service center managers who works in for the Veteran Service Center in our office in Seattle, as well as our change management agent, Allison Kahn. So with that being said, I will turn it over to our director, Prits Navaratnasingam.
Hi, just mic check. Can you hear me, Caesar?
We can hear you.
Great. Yeah, good afternoon, and I want to thank Alfie WDVA team for inviting us to present today with regard to information that VBA will provide about information on the claims process. And we look forward to an interactive dialogue. And I think, Caesar, did you just do the introductions for everyone who's, I don't want to repeat it if you already did the introductions for everyone who's on the call from our end?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, great. And so my name is Pritz Navratnasingham. I'm the director of the Seattle RO. And so let me go over the agenda for you today. As you can see in the agenda, next slide, please. Thank you. We're going to cover an overview of the benefits that are paid by VBA, our structure of the organization, operations overview, the claims process, and then get into what the options are if you disagree with your decision, and then information about exams, pension benefits, and we'll end with veteran readiness and employment. So I look forward to a very interactive, informative discussion. So next slide is an overview of the beneficiaries served and dollars paid. So in VBA, we have just over 24,000 employees and a nationwide network of 56 regional offices, delivering $118 billion in direct benefits to veterans and their dependents. So as you'll note in the slide that you're seeing, there are 8 major business lines and activities that make up VBA. And one that I want to make special note of is the decision review business line. And that business line is under the Office of Administrative Review. And it's a new construct that arose from the Appeals Modernization Act of 2017, where we implemented and streamlined the process of providing a decision review, replacing an outdated legacy appeals system. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail about the Appeals Modernization Act in a few slides later on. At this point, let me turn it over to Caesar to provide an overview of VBA's district structure.
Thank you, Pritz. So what you're looking at here is a map, obviously a map of the United States, which breaks down VBA's district structure. There are 4 districts within VBA. There's the Pacific District, Continental District, Southeast District, and Northeast District. And you can see within each district, there are offices, district offices, there are fiduciary hubs, and in some there are pension maintenance centers, as well as regional loan centers. And as you can see from VBA's perspective, we have offices all the way as far west as Manila to Togus, Maine. So the sun never sets on VBA. So what I would like to talk about in this slide is just the operations overview. So in the previous slide, I showed that the regional offices, how they were broken down within each district. But in this particular slide, I'd like to just give you a little bit more detail on what exactly our operations looks like within each district and exactly how it's broken down to improve efficiencies. So one thing that I could say about VBA is that we're in a constant state of change to improve service delivery of benefits to veterans, to claimants. And one thing that we're always looking at different ways is to improve service delivery to benefits is by centralizing operations, consolidating work processes, making sure that all regional offices, all 56 regional offices are moving in the same direction. So essentially what we're doing is we want to provide veterans benefits faster. We're always working together to provide continuous improvement of services. And we're taking a team approach to make sure that, again, like I mentioned, we are meeting the veterans' needs and providing that great customer service. So as you can see here, there are the 4 districts. Within DVA, we have 4 district offices. We have 3 decision review operations center. One of them is housed by the Seattle regional office. The other is housed by the St. Petersburg regional office in Florida. And the other one is located in Washington, DC. We also have, as you can see there, 6 fiduciary hubs, 2 disability rating activity sites. One is housed in the Seattle regional office, and the other one is housed at the Providence, Rhode Island regional office. And for those of you that may not know, we have 8 BEST sites. And the BEST sites is the consolidation of non-rating workload. So BEST actually stands for Benefits Eligibility Support Team, which is the consolidation of all compensation program, non-rating related work. So those are like claims for dependency, for example. So if you have a veteran that files a claim for just to add a dependency or to remove a dependency, that type of work is now being centralized to 8 regional offices. And those 8 regional offices are Little Rock, Nashville, Winston-Salem, Muskogee, St. Paul, Detroit, Milwaukee, and San Diego. And based on those locations, you can see that it's spread out, amongst the 4 district offices. We also have, and speaking of consolidation and process improvement, we also have our foreign claims. Our foreign claims, claims that are initiated by veterans who reside in a foreign country. Those claims are processed by the Pittsburgh regional office, and pension-related claims are processed. Foreign pension-related claims are processed by the St. Paul and Philadelphia regional offices. And then finally, when I'm talking about specialization, is overall, each regional office is required to have an MST outreach coordinator. So like we've discussed before, there are some priority claims that need to be prioritized based on the contention that the veteran submits a claim for. So for example, if a veteran submits a claim for military sexual trauma, each regional office, to ensure an accurate process, to ensure that the claim is processed in a timely manner, each regional office is required to have an MST claims processor or an MST outreach coordinator. And again, these claims are routed to this individual who has received specialized training, and they process this claim in a timely manner. We also have homeless veteran claims coordinators at each regional office, as well as ALS claims processors. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Michael Payne for the next slide.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Payne. I'm one of the Assistant Service Center Managers in the Veteran Service Center at the Seattle VA Regional Office. Within the Veteran Service Center, we have approximately 300 employees that process primarily claims that result in a rating decision and a compensation benefit determination for veterans throughout the nation. We primarily work claims for veterans from Washington State, but we also receive work through a national work distribution system that assists with the next claim that's available for processing. So we might be working on a claim for those in Washington State. We might be working on a claim for any veteran from across the nation, just depending on which is the next claim that's in line for processing. We also have teams that assist with mail processing outreach to the local communities here in Washington State, as well as a walk-in benefit counseling office here at the Jackson Federal Building. We also have a quality review team that looks at claims for quality. Just to note, our public-facing office at the Jackson Federal Building is now open for appointment-based times for veterans to meet face-to-face with benefits counselors with proper social distancing precautions in place, of course. So that started this week. A veteran is able to schedule this by going to the va.gov website and discuss, basically be able to select a time to meet with a benefit counselor. Again, this is by appointment only, so they would have to go to our Seattle regional office site to schedule that. At that time, they also can make a selection for a in-person or a telephone option, so they can talk with veterans with a benefits counselor here in Seattle regarding their claim. So we are open to the public again just for public based on appointment only. The Jackson Federal Building is still currently closed to the public, so they would have to have an appointment to attend an appointment with the benefits counselor. We wanted to provide you some information regarding the claims process and address any questions regarding what to expect after filing a claim, how long the claims process lasts, and if a medical examination is required, and about how long a veteran can expect a payment to arrive once the claims process has completed. So we'll address those questions here on the next few slides. The information provided on this slide is straight from the va.gov website. So if you go back one slide, yep, this slide. It's straight from the va.gov website. In case you want a reference later, you're able to obtain this information through the va.gov website. So currently processing times, as you can see highlighted there, is 131.5 days, or about 4 months, to complete our VA claims. VA approximately has 475,000 claims pending right now, with approximately 205,000 pending in the backlog. And the backlog is defined as 125 days or older. So our backlog is starting to grow. That's primarily due to the COVID-19 pandemic. VA processing times have changed initially during the pandemic, there was a closure of the VA compensation and pension exam offices where they completed the examinations, where the veteran would have to report for the examination in order for us to gather information to support the claim. So there was initially a closure of those offices as well as contract offices, which caused the processing times to increase slightly during that initial period back in March and April. Since then, we've begun to reopen through our contracting medical providers. So they are able to see veterans now in all 50 states in order to have the veteran attend an examination. So we are moving forward with the claims process there through that process. On average, the average days to complete back in January was 82.4 days. So it was much lower, well, just slightly lower, about 3 months for processing with approximately 407,000 claims pending. So there has been an increase of about 70,000 claims since January. And the backlog has increased from 75,000 to 205,000. So we are tracking those very closely and trying to attempt to address those claims directly. I think, yep, thanks. All right, so I just wanted to cover a few things before we dug into those specific questions, just to give you some general context of what we've been dealing with here within the Veteran Service Center. So back in 2012, the VA had approximately 600,000 claims pending in the backlog. To address that, we went through a modernization process of people, process, and technology. Basically what that did was it introduced the VBMS claims processing system, which is a web-based processing system. What that also allowed us to do was scan all of our records. So as many of you know, we were operating in an environment where we had paper claims files pending back in 2012. We've gone through a major effort of scanning all of our records to make sure that the records are available across the system. What that did was it allowed us to start sending work around to the next available employee. So instead of having the claim only processed where the paper claim file was located, we were able to scan all of those records and then kind of level the playing field and level the claims processing across all of our offices. As it was mentioned before, we have 56 claims processing offices. We wanted to be able to make sure that we were leveraging all of those resources to provide the best processing time as possible. So through that process, we were able to reduce our processing time from 12 to 18 months down to that 3-month mark through the introduction of, again, the VBMS claims processing environment, as well as scanning all of our records and then moving into a national work queue. As I mentioned before, the Seattle regional office here processes claims from across the nation, but primarily those for the veterans here in Washington state. So given that context, we wanted to provide you some additional information about, about how long it takes. So right now, that 131.5 days for our processing time, or about 4 months. It really depends on what the type of claim you file, as well as how many injuries or disabilities are claimed, and how long or what type of evidence we need to gather before we can move forward on that claim. So the question is, what should I do while I wait? The veteran themselves, we do have an obligation from the VA's perspective to assist the veteran with gathering information required for their claim. So once the veteran submits the claim, the claim form, most likely the 526EZ, that will basically signal the VA to begin the claims process and the development process of that claim. We will assist in collecting any federal records, any private medical records that are identified, as well as VA records. If the veteran is being seen by the VA, we'll have access to those medical records. And if there are any military records that we need to gather, we will be able to gather that information as well from any of the federal facilities. From there, we can move forward on the claim and identify whether or not an examination is needed. So there are lots of parts to the claim that we need to gather, but really the veteran will be contacted if there's anything that we need specifically from the veteran. And we are getting to the point where we're contacting the veteran throughout the claims process to make sure that they're aware of any documents that we're looking for, and if the veteran happens to have a copy of those documents, we'll be able to obtain that from the veteran directly. I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. All right, so what happens after I file a VA disability claim? The claim, once it's received, you'll receive an indication, if we go back, yep. You'll receive an indication depending on how you file your claim. So if you file your claim online, you'll get an on-screen message basically confirming that the claim was received. If you file through e-benefits, you'll get a notice in your claims, list within an hour of applying. So that's if you have access to the e-benefits process, which takes some credentialing to get access to that. If you mail in your application, you'll receive a letter that confirms receipt of the actual application within about a week, plus the mail time after we receive your claim. And so that will confirm that we received your claim on the proper form, and that the claim was received, and there wasn't any additional information, such as a signature, or if there's any clarification that's needed from that claim application, we'll include in that letter. And the next slide. An initial review will happen next. So that's where we review your claim and determine if there's anything else that we need to support, such as evidence. In the application process, there will be often a review of the claim itself, and you'll identify records that are needed for the actual claim. And if those are identified, then we'll move on to the next process, which is the evidence gathering and review and decision. So in this review process, that's where we spend a majority of our time and the processing time is gathering this information. So as previously mentioned, we'll gather federal records, which may include a personnel file. If we need access to your personnel file from your military time, we'll gather that information. We'll also gather your service treatment records, which are very important in identifying if an injury occurred in service or an event was reported in your medical records to identify that event in service. We'll also gather private medical records that you identify. You can also submit those directly to us. But if you identify a private medical provider, we'll go out to that private provider and ask for those records based on a release from you. Once we gather all of that information and take a look at the disability picture, if we decide that we need additional medical evidence, such as an examination, in order to have all the information available as required by the rating schedule, we may schedule you for an examination. And at that time, a VA examiner, and right now we're currently using contractors, so a contract examiner would reach out to you for scheduling of that examination. During COVID-19, we did not cancel any exams, so if we had claims out there that were pending that we needed an examination from, we made sure that we tracked all of those through a special issue within the the VBMS system. We attached a special tracked item, which basically allowed us to track those. It's called the force majeure special issue indicator, and that just allowed us to make sure that we were able to manage all of those. And it also allowed us to begin scheduling examinations pretty routinely, depending on which areas of the country were opening back up. So as you know, the COVID-19 pandemic was impacting the various regions across the nation at different times. So as the local areas were opening back up, VA began opening contract examinations based on those local operating areas. So that did allow us to begin examinations again and start gathering the information needed for those claims if we needed an examination. Another type of evidence that we may gather is a medical opinion. So once we have that examination information, or when we request the examination, we may also ask the examiner to provide an opinion, which is the link to the event in service and the current medical disability, and whether or not those are connected. So the VA claims processor is not able to make that decision. That is a medical decision and has to be provided by a medical provider. So the medical opinion is often providing that link between the current condition and the event in service. Any other evidence that's gathered, such as statements, oftentimes buddy statements are very important to gather and provide context of the event that occurred. So we may be asking for those as required by law or regulation. During FY21, our major focus for the agency is to reduce waiting time or have no waiting time. And essentially what that means is we're going to become a tough customer for those federal agencies that we're trying to gather information from. May that be any of the military service branches, or if that's from federal records, folks that are holding federal records. We're really trying to move forward and not be waiting on information, and really trying to advocate on behalf of the veteran. Oftentimes we're waiting for those records. Even during a pandemic, we're trying to ensure that those records come available. And if that means creating a new sharing system, which is what we had done in the past with the Guard and Reserve units, that created a whole new operation and a whole new way of communicating information back to VA. So those are the types of initiatives that we'll be taking in FY21 to make sure that we're not waiting on any records, that we'll have the information available at our fingertips to make these decisions. I also wanted to address during this evidence gathering and review and decision period, we're also prioritizing claims based on special needs such as homeless veterans, terminally ill claims. So if we know that the condition that is being claimed is a terminal condition, we'll certainly prioritize that to make sure that we're addressing that claim first. If there's an extreme financial hardship, we'll be addressing those claims first as well, and making sure that those claims are moving forward. We also have special processing for different types of claims. An example would be military sexual trauma. Those claims we want to handle very delicately and make sure that we're communicating with the veteran with empathy and ensuring that we're making sure that we're gathering as much information as possible for that type of a claim. Generally, it's based on PTSD or some other mental health condition, but there's a whole host of other conditions that can be a result of an event in service caused by military sexual trauma. So we have employees that are specially trained to look for markers within the personnel files and the medical records to ensure that we're gathering as much information as possible to give a good picture of what occurred so that we can grant the benefit if possible. Any questions about the evidence gathering process? Hearing none, I will move on to the next slide. I'm not sure if there's anything in the chat. We can address any questions in the chat here after the slides as well. So in preparation of the notification, so I actually skipped a step. The decision-making process is really the rating activities. So once we gather all the information through the evidence gathering process, we have specialists that are raters. They're essentially focused on reviewing the information and applying it to the rating schedule. So the rating schedule lays out specifically what disability percentages are available based on the various diagnostic codes. So it's looking at diagnostic codes for pretty much any medical condition that is possible. And that relates to a disability percentage. And that disability percentage is based on the severity of that condition. And that percentage relates to a compensation payment. So essentially what the rater is doing is they're gathering, or they're reviewing all the information that's been gathered through the development process. They're looking at all the medical evidence, they're looking at the personnel records, they're looking at the service treatment records, they're looking at the examination if we gathered one, and the medical opinions to make a determination whether or not the condition was service connected. You know, is the current medical problem that's being presented, is it related to service? That's their initial question that they must answer. And then if they say yes, then they have to identify the level of disability or the severity of that disability, and then apply it to the rating schedule to identify a percentage for that particular condition. Once they have that percentage identified for that condition, they do the same for every claimed condition on the veteran's claim. Once they gather all that information, they will input that information into the VBMS system and create a rating decision. That rating decision is the legal document that grants the benefit to the veteran. It's basically an analysis of the full claims file for that particular condition, and it grants the benefit at that percentage rate. We also have special considerations in the rating decision, which is may consider special monthly compensation. So if there is a rate or if there's a condition that must be reviewed for special monthly compensation, that will also be granted at that time. Housebound, and just going back, an example of special monthly compensation might be for the loss of a limb, where there's, or the loss of any of the senses, like loss of vision. All those are considered for with additional compensation. There's also a housebound rate. So if there's the veteran needs additional services, those considerations would be made in the rating decision and made by the rating veteran service representative or rating specialist. All right, next slide goes to step 4, which is preparation for notification. At that time, after the rating decision is created, it goes on to the post team, and the post team, they review the rating decision and prepare an award. That award is basically a document that identifies the payment amount for how the payment is going to be interpreted by the system. And then that award is authorized and it results into a U.S. Treasury payment. We also gather all the payment information at that time, such as direct deposit information, which would be provided at the beginning of the claim, so that we can get the payment out relatively quickly. So these last few processes, such as the rating decision, the award, the authorization, and this notification letter, all happens within days. We really try and push the claim forward and make a completed claim as soon as we can. So a majority of those 135 days is evidence gathering and verifying the information and gathering the exam. Once that information is in, it's literally within several days for the rating decision to occur and then for the award to go out. The payment can be expected on the next month's processing. So the first of the next month would be the time when the payment would actually go out from the U.S. Treasury. The other considerations in the award process is they would look at any retired pay or separation pay that may have been paid to the veteran, and there may be some recruitment that might have to occur just due to federal regulations that require us to consider those other payments that the veteran may have received compensation for or through retired pay. So there are some rules out there as far as how much they'll receive up front and if there's any retroactive payment that's due to the veteran. And then finally, the claim is complete. We send a notification letter, including the rating decision, which is that legal document explaining, how we came to this decision. It explains the evidence that we used and an analysis against the regulations of why we made that specific decision. We'll go on to the next process of disagreeing with the decision. So if you do disagree with the decision, there is a process for that, but we wanted to open it up for any questions or concerns at that point. All right, hearing none, I'll turn it over to Allison Kahn from the Director's Office here at the Veteran Service or VA Regional Office.
Thank you so much, Michael. So going forward, if we don't agree with the VA decision, there are steps that can be taken. And in these steps, it's called the Veterans Appeal Movement and Modernization Act of 2017. The AMA, it was fully implemented on February 19th, 2019. It provided claimants who disagree with VA claims decision with a choice of 3 decision review options: a supplemental claim, a higher level review claim, or an appeal directly to the Board of Veterans Appeals. So what happens is when we send you the notification letter with your rating decision, we give you these forms in your packet. So if the veteran doesn't agree, that they can decide how they want to do these things. So the supplemental claim can be filed and you can add all sorts of new evidence. Maybe you have a doctor's report that didn't get to the VA in time when they made their decision and you want it to be reviewed again based on that evidence. If you have additional evidence that is out there that didn't get included, we'll go find that information for you. These decisions are done by about the same level employee that made your rating decision at the first time, but they're considering new information. And it normally takes about another 125 days to come up with a new decision because there's so much development that needs to be done. If you're going to do a higher level review, which is done by a higher level adjudicator, so a DRO, a decision review officer, these get an entirely new look. They take into consideration your entire claim folder from the bottom to the top, and you're not allowed to put any more information in because these are done so that you can say to somebody, I gave you all the information, you just didn't look at it all. That's one of those look-sees again. You can also get an informal telephone conference with the higher level review, which some veterans really find that is helpful to them so that they can voice their concerns, voice things that they may need help with that they didn't understand in regular VA language or decisions. So both of these, the supplemental claim and the higher level review claim, they're done in about 125 days, which is really fantastic in overall of how in-depth these are reviewed. If you want to go to the Board of Veterans Appeals because you didn't like your decision in your supplemental claim and you didn't like what happened in the higher level review, you can still go to that other level. You can still go to BVA and submit a claim. Those claims on average take about 365 days or so to be processed. And they sit for a while because there is a backlog. So there's a direct review. So if you do not want to submit any additional evidence or have a hearing, the average response to the board is 365 days. If you want to submit evidence to the Board of Veterans Appeals, you will have 90 days from your notice of disagreement, which we call a nod, to submit any additional evidence. And if you want to go the route and have a hearing, so a face-to-face hearing or even an in-person or a teleconference hearing, and you have additional evidence that you want to be submitted and you want to testify, you can do that. They schedule those meetings out farther, and you have about 90 days for the hearing to schedule. So I totally messed that phrase up. I'm very sorry. If you have additional evidence and want to testify before a veteran law judge, you will be scheduled for a board hearing and may submit evidence at the hearing or within the 90-day window following the scheduled hearing. There, that was much better. If you have questions on how to file a claim with the either the supplemental or the higher level review, you can go to a website at www.va.gov/decision reviews /. If you need that information website, you let me know and I'll get it for you. Next slide, please, Caesar. So this is a graph of the legacy appeals drawdown. So it has been a priority of the USB to get our legacy appeals backlog reduced. So if you can see from this graph, the top graph is the entire United States and the history of the appeals. In March, we had 238,000 notices of disagreements sitting and unanswered. And as of September of this year, nationwide, we had 5,000. That is huge, the difference. And that just goes to show how fast these appeal processes, the fact that we have these 3 different lanes is clearing up the backlog. If you look at the graph down below, that's just for Seattle. So in that same time frame in which there were 283,000, Seattle had 4,100 of those. And now we're down to 71, roughly. That's a great process. That's a great, movement ahead in how we are being fiscally responsible and spending the VA dollars on our veterans. If you have questions on any of these things, please feel free to reach out and ask. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. Are there any questions on the floor that I might be able to answer?
Just as a heads up, we have allowed participants to unmute yourselves now. So if you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask those questions whenever.
Allison, there's a question, or Cesar Fritz. It says, what is the percentage of approval rating?
So the turnover rate, so if they had a denial and then they get it approved?
Correct.
Correct.
That's a good question. Michael, do you know the answer to that one off the top of your head? I don't know that I know the answer off the top of my head.
I don't, but we could probably gather that information and provide that.
I can get that for you.
Allison, this is Fritz. Without an exact percentage, around 20%, I believe, for higher level review, if that's what they're asking.
Are approved, are granted?
Yes.
Thank you, Fritz. Additionally, I wanted to let you know that the 5,000 that we have remaining, they're sitting there due to pending exams and third parties requests for medical records. They're not sitting there just because we haven't worked on them. We're waiting for evidence to come in. So I think that we have shown that we have made really good progress with the DROC, and that happens within our office here in Seattle.
On that note, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Can you hear me? Okay. So my son has been going through the process, and he's asking me to ask you this question. So I hope this makes sense. He's waiting for the VA to approve a third-party company to schedule his follow-up appointment. He says he's having issues getting the VA to send the approval to VES. Does that make sense? Okay.
So, you know, earlier when Michael was talking about how we had the force majeure exams. So,
okay.
So the VA schedules out the exams. And what happens is when we first went down in March, right? COVID happened and nobody was seeing anybody. The contract examiners have reopened, but we still ordered the exams during that time frame.
So they have a backlog.
They have a backlog. So we're working through that backlog, and that's how we're seeing veterans now.
Okay. Okay, so he just needs to give it some time.
Yes. And the thing is we're not gonna cancel his exam and reestablish it because it takes him out of line where he is and puts him all the way at the end again.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. My pleasure.
Hi, I'm Agatha. I have a question.
Of course.
I received a letter, Department of Affairs, saying appeals received for your board appeal request. But then it says that not to send additional documentations, but then it says if you want to submit documentations, please do so. So I'm a little confused on that because I just found some additional documentations. I'm going through NILAG to help me with the appeal. But moving around, I found some additional documentation that would support the disability, but I'm a little confused as now I can't send documentations or can I?
It really depends on which one you applied for. If you went to the supplemental claim versus the higher level review. And maybe
we did the higher level review.
Okay, so the higher level review says not to add any new evidence, but if you want, please reach out to me directly, and Lisa has my information, but you can contact me and I can talk about your claim specifically and let you know.
Okay, roger that. Thank you.
I think it's important to just to tag on to what you just said. So the higher level review is not a lane in which you submit any additional evidence. It's a de novo review that the decision review officer does of the decision that the prior decision maker made. So it's not, if you're actually wanting to add evidence then, and you're in higher level review, it will be moved to supplemental lane. So, but under no circumstances do you have to add evidence. So if there's no evidence to submit, I would say let the decision play out in the higher level review.
Okay. Okay, but if that documentation can help to support my claim.
You can certainly submit that, but what I'm saying is then it will be in the supplemental lane because then you're submitting additional evidence.
Okay, got it.
So it's just it's really a matter of which lane it belongs in. What I'm saying is the way higher level review was constructed, there's no evidence to submit, but you want a higher level reviewer looking at the prior decision because you believe the prior decision was decided incorrectly.
Right. I guess this is where it gets confusing because it tells you not to submit and then you're saying that it's on the level. I guess it's lack of understanding how the system works.
Okay, so you're saying you submitted you wanted your decision reviewed under higher level review. So,
yes.
at the time when you asked that, you didn't have any additional evidence you wanted to submit. Is that correct?
Correct. And then I found additional paperwork.
Then you do want to be in supplemental. So yes, submit that evidence, and then we'll consider it with in the supplemental lane.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, I'm just gonna let Michael take it over again. And
I got a question. In reference
Oh,
to the medical portion, Mr. Padilla here. As you know, when we are in active duty, well, you know, you get injured or you got any condition, it's already recorded in your medical records. And especially if you get voted out, the stuff still will follow you. The whole history is there. Why? Because I was reading an article, it was a couple months ago. I can't remember what state did it. They waived the medical portion because the evidence is already there. And if they had any other questions or something else, then they will contact the person, and they were able to process all their, you know, their claims. Because it's like, for me, it's just like we're doing the stuff double again, because if the stuff is already recorded, you still being treated, you still probably even have your prosthetics that you got from active duty, you still wear them. Why do we got to go to the system again? And the reason I'm asking this is because for some reason, it's just like we doing the same thing all over again. And then how can you get more evidence if the stuff is already there? And that is the problem a lot of veterans are giving up, because, you know, they got the stuff there and they come back disapproved. You know, and so I'm not sure, you know, because I know that for me, the worst mistake that VA did was go from VA to go to a civilian agency to do the evaluations, because, you know, so I'm not sure. And the reason I'm saying this, I got right now was working with a case. He was in Vietnam. He had diabetes since he came back from Vietnam, but he was now finally they approved the blue water, so he qualifies for it. So they have given him only 20% for problems with his feet because the nerves on his feet, but then they denied the 40% because they said he was not using any type of insulin or any type of diet. And guess he's been in insulin for the last 15 years. So we went back and we were able to correct that, but then he got the stuff back again, and they did the same thing and they denied the 40% because they're saying he didn't have insulin, and the stuff is in the medical records. How can they miss that? So it's a big, I don't know, it's a big, people are not reading or they're missing it, or I'm not sure.
well, that's a really good question.
You know, Allison, I can, you know, Miguel, we have a duty to assist and to make sure that, you know, that the veteran, the claimant, has had an opportunity to submit medical evidence, even if it's something that's already been submitted in a previous claim. You know, we have a requirement whenever a veteran does file a claim to request any evidence, just to make sure that when we make that decision, that we have all the evidence of record and everything that the veteran wants us to consider as part of the decision process. You know, as a veteran myself, I always submit any relevant medical documentation, you know, that I want the VA to consider. You know, so, and again, that entire process itself will be utilized to make a decision on a claim. So I would say if it's something that is that you maybe have already previously submitted, or something that you know, or you're unsure whether or not the veteran submitted as part of the claim process, I would just make a note of that. But I would always just, in uncertain, you know, just to be certain that the VA has had the evidence to submit that you know, whatever the treatment records are.
And that is the problem, because I went back and found it, it was in his medical records, and they missed it. He'd been using insulin for the last 15 years. And there was another veteran there that same thing, he was a 100% permanent total, and he was putting another claim in, and I need to figure out from you guys what is the true story. If you're 100% permanent in total and another condition shows up, and what I was told was you're not required to put a claim because they will take care of the claim. And most of the times, this condition is being secondary to something else. You know what I'm saying? So do you have to put another claim if you're already 100% permanent total if another condition shows up?
You said if another condition shows up?
Yeah, correct. For example, if
yeah.
Yeah, for example, if you were,
I would file, sorry, go ahead.
because I was told not to do so, because the other question I was going to ask about this is because a lot of people have done that, and they put one claim, say for my ankles or my knees, and then they're looking at everything you have, and they have lost their, that's what happened to that gentleman. He had 100%, and he lost, and they dropped him to 70%. When I say you were not required to do that, if you were already permit, you've been over 10 years as a 100%, veteran, why do you put in another claim? And that's what happened. He lost his 700%. Because I know I was reading, it says if you've been 20 years as a 100%, if you come with another claim and you get better, they're not taking it away. So what I was told was about the 10%, if you're 10 year, if you come with any other condition and you die from that condition, even though there was not service connected, you're still good to go. Your still wife will qualify for DIC. So I just want to make sure.
I'm sorry, Miguel, I didn't mute myself. So your questions are really good. And I think if you could we talk offline, because
sure, we can do that.
have like three different scenarios and they kind of overlap, but they don't. So if you're talking about a veteran who is service connected for diabetes and he has complications of his diabetes, we'll service connect those without a lot of paperwork and hoopla to get those done. But if he has diabetes and now you say he has a skin rash, I'm going to need a medical opinion or a nexus to show me how that's related to his diabetes.
Yeah.
In that specific case.
Yeah. See, and the thing with him was because he was in the Navy, and they just finding out blue water last year, effective turning application this year, they cannot make his diabetes service connected because, like I say, he was in the Navy at the time. So he was there from September 71 to July 72, which qualified him under Agent Orange. You see what I'm saying? So they gave him the diabetes for his feet, for his nerve, but the diabetes per se, he didn't get it because they could not make his service connected, because at the time there was nothing saying, well, if you're a Vietnam veteran that was in a ship off the coast of Vietnam and then the wind blew out of Agent Orange, now you got it because now they approved it. But now we put the claim back in, and that's what he's waiting right now. So
okay, well, how about you and I talk offline on that one?
We can do that.
And I'll put my Raider hat on and I'll tell you all that I am.
Okay, great. We can do that.
Okay. Thank you for your questions. They're really good questions.
Alice and Bob Wallace with the American Legion, and also the VAC. There's two forms that are now required for the old notice of disagreement. Could you explain what those two forms are?
Sure. There's a 0995 and a 0996. I know. Sometimes I can't remember which ones they are. At this moment, I'm good and I know the difference.
Okay.
So 995 is for the supplemental claim and 996 is for the higher level review.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, once will they automatically be coming to the veteran with his award letter?
They should. I've seen them in packages because you get like, I want to say they're like 15 pages in there when you do a notification letter. So yes, they should be right in there. If not, they're up on our website, but I can help you get them.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Allison, my name is Charles Hooper. You probably already covered this, but I'm looking at your trends here. And the one that's kind of disturbing to me is you went in Seattle, we went from 4,700 and all of a sudden you had the deep drop and we're down to 71. I'm not questioning anybody's ability and all the work that they put in. I know everybody's worked hard, but when you put in a claim and it comes back so fast, saying it was denied, then you start to worry about, how this was taken care of. I had knee replacements and all of a sudden they told me that it wasn't service connected, but I ran in the Army in boots for 20 years. And and I have flat fee from it and all the other things. And they say, well, it's not service connected. I didn't have it before, but I can't claim it now. I'm like, it's disturbing to me when I get that, a return back as fast as I did, and then see the trend. I'm very, very concerned that maybe I wasn't treated fairly. So I'm not sure. So.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry to hear that you think that you're not treated fairly. Please, if you would like me to review it and to talk it over with you, I will gladly do that for you, because each case is specific and there's a potential that it just wasn't explained to you clear enough on why we made the decision. And that's okay. But I understand what your thought process is about how we fell off. But the backlog is eliminated, or has been eliminated, because of all of the long hours and the hard work that we put in. We don't cut corners in Seattle. No, that is not how we do it here. So if that's even a consideration in your mind, I would really love it if you don't consider that anymore. We are long hours, long in the tooth, sitting at our computers, making sure that we get all of those answers correct. We may not explain it to you well enough that you understand. So if you would like, I will gladly look at your claim offline and we can talk about it.
That would be fine. I have to get back to another meeting. How do I get in touch with you, or do I go through this process to try to find you?
My email address is Allison, ALLISON, .con, CONN, at va.gov. And I will be here until the Seattle Regional Office no longer needs me.
Okay, you're in the Seattle Regional Office, so I should be able to find you on there on log on the okay.
Yeah.
One thing, David, can we please place maybe your email or contact information in the chat box?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
Hey, Allison, one thing I want to add to the appeals drawdown, the legacy appeals drawdown that you're seeing, one of the reasons also we see a precipitous drop in the inventory of notices of disagreement is because subsequent to the Appeals Modernization Act implementation in February of 2019, at that point, any appeal went directly to the board. So we were working down the legacy appeals that were in the system. New appeals were not being added because based on the construct of the new law, if you were filing an appeal, it went directly to the board. But as Allison said, all the appeals teams around the nation made a concerted effort to work towards a July goal of getting to functional zero on appeals so that we could make sure that we serve those veterans who've been waiting for a long time in our legacy appeals system. So it really is, as Allison said, a function of a lot of effort and time dedicated to working on legacy appeals. But also the other side of it is with the implementation of the new law in February, you kind of see that in the on the top graph where you start to see it really start to decline. That's also coincident with the implementation of the new Appeals Modernization Act.
And I'm sorry if I made it sound bad or anything. I just work in technology, and I've seen stuff like this. I work for the state, and I've seen this over and over again. I know that people put in a lot of work, and it's hard. I know your job is hard, and I sympathize with you. I'm just concerned that people are, when you see the big drop off like that, and then you start seeing what your appeals are, you just get a little concerned. But I thank you for your help and your work, and Allison, I'll reach out to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Perfect. Then let's move on to examinations, and Michael's going to pick it up from there.
Hello, everyone. So we just wanted to go back to the question regarding the VA examination. So an examination or opinion is only necessary under the CFR 3.159 when there is not sufficient medical evidence of record to make a decision on the claim. So you may or may not need a VA examination. we might need a VA examination to help rate the disability. The rating is based on the severity of your disability. And if the medical record at the time that we've collected, if it doesn't include enough information to give us that good disability picture, then we may request a VA examination to get all the pertinent details. The question is, does everyone who files a claim need a VA exam? No, the VA may have enough information to move forward based on that medical record. So if you submit medical information, you may submit information from your private medical records, from your VA records, which we have access to. We'll look at all of that information, and if we're able to make a determination based on that, we will not request an examination. Oftentimes we get claims for ALS and other claims that are terminally ill claims, and we're able to see the condition really clearly in the medical records, and we're able to make that determination right away. We don't necessarily need an examination. However, if we don't have enough information that's specific to the rating schedule, and we discussed this earlier, where the rating schedule has really specific information of how we make the determination between the various levels of disability. If we're not able to make a clear differentiation between the level of disability to get you to the higher percentage level, we may request an examination to make sure that that's really clear, so that we can make the proper determination of the severity of the condition, as well as making sure that the condition is service connected. Any other questions on exams?
Yeah, does VA look at every other service-related condition when a veteran puts a claim in?
No, so they would have to claim a specific condition.
Okay, okay.
Your claim would have to list that specific condition.
Okay.
If there are like other, like you mentioned diabetes before, that can obviously split off into a lot of different conditions. Or a mental health condition, we would look at, things that encompass that particular disability. But in general, I would say on your application, even if it's a supplemental claim, you're asking for an increase, in those cases, I would still explicitly list each of the conditions that you're already service connected for. And if there's new conditions, certainly list those as well, so we can thoroughly address the full claim.
Okay.
I have a question. If, during the service time, condition was never show up, a symptom never show up. Now suddenly, after you get out of service, and then you go into a hospital and these guys say, well, this is relayed back to those days. So how do you proceed to go on about to make those claims?
Thank you for the question. So there is a whole class of conditions called presumptive conditions, where we just assume that a veteran that served would be potentially exposed to these particular conditions. We would look to see if it's on that presumptive list, and if we're able to grant service connection just based on the fact that you were in the military, you're more likely to have these particular conditions. There are time limits for that. So there are a list of specific presumptive conditions where it wouldn't necessarily need to be listed in your service records or your medical records. However, there is still, a way for us to look back and look at other indicators in the record. So it may not have been diagnosed in service, but there might be other indicators to where we could say, yes, this likely occurred. So it really depends on the condition itself, what the claim condition is. But there are ways that the manual and the regulations allow for us to make a service-connected condition determination based on what's in the record or what's, in this case, not in the record. It just really depends on the particular condition that you're claiming.
So if that's the case, how do I proceed on that?
I would, you can always just submit the claim so that we can look and determine what's in there. That's really the best way that I would recommend is, what's the worst that could happen in this situation? We might say no, and we will give you appeal rights and, give you a reasoning of why we can't service connect you at this time. But we would also list, specifically what you would need to provide to prove that the condition is service connected. So I would say submit the claim. And then if you have any additional documentation or statements from your current doctors, please either point those out to us so we can go get them for you, or if there's documentation that you have, you can submit that, and we'll certainly review that evidence and determine whether or not we can make that service connected determination.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, and talking about that issue, there's a condition called sleep apnea. In my days, when I came in the military in the 80s, if you were the biggest snorer in the room, you were the king of the mountain. So then as time went by, the same thing with the concussion and TBI, they changed the term, and they found out that the reason you were snoring was because you were gasping for air and your brain is not getting enough oxygen and your heart will enlarge. So has VA had tried to do a study? Because I know a lot of people that I know, their stuff gets denied because it was discovered or was diagnosed after they got out of the military, because like I say, the new things change. So what is VA doing in reference to that about sleep apnea? Because I know a lot of people getting the stuff denied because it was not done during the active duty.
Certainly. So, any of those conditions, like that, especially the traumatic brain injury, we'd just be looking for when did the event occur. We're not looking for a diagnosis in service necessarily, because there is a delayed onset for a lot of those. There might be some, symptoms like sleep apnea or like other things that just show up and may not be necessarily documented very well in the service records. But again, it's really claim specific. We are looking at those. There are considerations for each of those conditions. As the science progresses, we do certainly learn more about these conditions. And unfortunately, during additional conflicts, we start learning them as well, because, each veteran, each era of veterans have experienced things slightly differently. And I think through the Iraq and Afghanistan era, we've learned a lot more about TBI. And we've really tried to identify those conditions earlier and those events earlier so that we can make that service-connected condition. So again, in those situations, I would certainly apply so that we can at least get it in the record, that the veteran is stating that this occurred, and it's likely to, they're claiming that it is due to service, so that we can get it on the record and then, give you information based on that. If there is a denial, then we can certainly move forward through the appeals process.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
You're welcome.
All right, the next slide that I have is on pension. So I just wanted to discuss generally the benefit for pension. So VA benefits does provide a supplemental income program for wartime veterans and their survivors. So if they don't have a service-connected condition, or if they're not claiming a service-connected condition, but they are they don't have a high income, they can request pension benefit. So pension benefit itself is tax-free, income-based benefit for wartime veterans who are permanently and totally disabled or 65 and older, and they're eligible survivors. So it's a very specific category of veteran that we can assist with the pension benefit. But it is designed as a benefit program for supplemental income. Seriously disabled veterans and eligible survivors may qualify for increased benefits if they are in need of aid and attendance of another person or housebound. So if they need assistance in daily living, or if they have a condition where they need that assistance, then there is a consideration for an additional benefit. Pension, burial, and survivor benefits, our delivery is improving through automated claims processing. Basically what that's saying is that we're processing those through an automated means to try and address based on forms and information. If it's submitted on the form and all the information is there, we're likely to be able to result in a very quick determination and a payment that occurs the next month. The next payment month right away. So it doesn't even necessarily need to get in front of a claims processor. We'll be able to just scan that into the system and it'll result in a payment if all the information is there on the form. During the period, $4.9 billion in pension benefits were paid out to 434,000 veterans and survivors in FY19. So it is a big program. We do provide additional services outside of compensation. So this would not need a rating decision to say it was service connected. It would be more based on an income-based program to provide that supplemental income. Any questions about pension?
I have not necessarily a question on it, but I am a surviving spouse and representative from MOAA, and try to pass the words off from all of these kind of things. I received, upon my husband's death and going to Fort Lewis, handing the VA office his death certificate, was told that I should apply for DIC just by the diagnosis on his death. He was only 40% prior to that, so I was not expecting a thing, but because the VA office at Fort Lewis was wonderful to hand me the paperwork, I took it to the American Legion and had it filed and was awarded. So, but I was not expecting to receive anything, just the fact that his death was Agent Orange related, received that. So I want to spread that word as much as I can. So as an MOAA liaison, I try to do that, but I also would like to tell people here that as surviving spouses, as you have listed, there is benefits there, and you don't like being without your veteran, but at least if he only knew, I'm still being cared for with that. I also have a 99-year-old lady who is under kind of same circumstances, lost her SBP because of it, but we've got that all offsetted in Congress now. But she is 99 and living in her own home, is in need of aid and assistance. But I understand it is on an income basis, is it not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, he was retired one-star general, so I'm sure, I don't even know it would be worth applying for it. She needs the help. She doesn't need the income, but she does need the help, and I'm not even sure that it would be worth applying.
Thank you for the question and your statement, Cheryl. I really appreciate you just mentioning the fact that you never know until you apply. And as your story demonstrates, it's almost best just to apply without any expectations sometimes, and that we might be able to provide assistance. And that's really, I think, where the VA is going, is we're really trying to do additional outreach, and we really appreciate the services that the veteran service organizations provide. You really are the folks that are out in the community still, reaching out, and you have that informal communication and informal ties to the community that allows the benefits for the VA to get paid out. Without you all really discussing that with the people on the ground, we're trying to do more of that. A lot of different outreach through the VA directly. But again, these informal relationships are really how we get this information out. So we really appreciate these forums to be able to discuss this. So, I would encourage her to apply just to determine whether or not, it is available. And again, it might be that, it's more limited based on income, but there might be some other consideration that we're not thinking of for her specific case that would result in some type of benefit that she might find worthwhile.
Okay, thank you. I'll encourage that. When I heard it was income based, I stopped not to even encourage her, but we have the application printed out and have spoke to her doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, I was working, Ms. Cheryl, I was just working on a case and she got approved, and what they do is the DIC, that money is that the one she has to, because she has to, when it comes to everyday living, she has to hire somebody to come and help. For example, the visiting angels. So VA will not provide the person to come, but they'll give you the money. That's what the DIC is for. Now, if you want to send me your email, and I got a checklist that I put together for the surviving spouses. When somebody dies, they could go to Fort Lewis at Waller Hall, RSO, SOS, and VA to in-process, and they'll do everything for you right there. So I will send you the checklist.
And just to note, the JBLM office for at least the VA is not quite open yet. We are, again, the Jackson Federal Building is by appointment only. But if you go to our website, you are able to schedule time with a Veterans Benefits counselor here in Seattle virtually. So you'd be able to basically either come up on a video call or a teleconference that's scheduled through the website. So if you go to va.gov and then search Seattle Regional Office, you'll find the link to be able to schedule that.
I have a question, if there's still some time for it. I put it in the chat box, but I'm still learning about pension and what all is considered countable income. And then once the pension is awarded, what is affected by it in regards to if a veteran is awarded a VA pension, how does that affect their Social Security benefits and their compensation benefits? I'm led to believe there is a choice and an offset, but how exactly does that work?
Yeah, so I will admit I am not an expert on pension, but I was just looking at, so there is this thing called a MAPR, which is the maximum annual pension rate. And that's the calculation that they're really going to make. They'll try and reduce the income based on medical expenses. And that's really where they ask for that worksheet and attempt to deduct from your income to reduce you down to a rate that would get a payable benefit. So it's really important to list everything on those documents. You never know what we're going to be able to count as a medical expense or not. And then once we're able to reduce it to a rate that's payable, then that'll result in a payment. The Pension Center is really good about answering questions about that or giving information back. Even if you are denied initially, they'll explain specifically why it was denied, and then you would be able to explain it a little bit better or give them additional information if they're needing that. I know that there is some general information on va.gov/pension, which gives some general information about the net worth limit to qualify for veterans pension and additional information in there. It does specifically list what the MAPR amount is, which again is that maximum annual pension rate, and would kind of explain specifically what would be counted in there or not. I don't know if that answers your question or not. We could, if you wanted to put your information in the chat, we could also attempt to connect you with someone to assist with that as well.
So Michael, there's a question. It says, how does pension affect SS benefits and compensation benefits?
So compensation would be a separate program. So you generally wouldn't receive pension and compensation at the same time. You would get the greater benefit. As far as Social Security, I think Social Security is dependent on, so that may or may not count as your income. And I think it really depends on this very specific case, whether or not they're including the Social Security income or not. It might depend on what type of Social Security it is. But again, it'd be really case specific. I apologize, I'm not providing a very specific answer there. Oh, great. I did get the information from Douglas County, and we will see if we can identify a point of contact for you. Any other general questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, this is John Washington. Since you're saying general questions, my question pertains to the fact that I completed your TRIP program for certification as a VSO. And that was back in January, February timeframe. I went into the American Legion office out in the Lacey area, and they processed my paperwork, but I haven't got any communication back. And this was done back in March timeframe.
John, this is Allison. If you could reach out to me directly, I am now in charge of that. So I can help you with that because I don't have an answer off the top of my head, but I'll research it if you want to reach out to me.
Certainly, I can do that.
Okay, and I'll get an answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael or Allison, this is Charles Wharton from AMVETS and the VAC member. As long as we're doing general questions, one thing I missed in one of the earlier presentations was your comments pertaining to the ability of a claimant to check the status of their claim online after it had been submitted electronically by an NSO. I have received several inquiries along those lines in the last few weeks. So if you could revisit that before everyone wanders away, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for the question. I believe it's dependent upon their level of access to the VA system. Although I was assisting a new claimant with getting access, and it's through a different credentialing system that they're able to view that information. So I don't think it's as restricted as before, where they had, you know, the multiple levels of credentialing. I think they're getting to this point where it's a little bit easier to get access to just view basic information. But the other thing that I would encourage them to do is that they can always call the 800 line, the 800-827-1000 number, and ask for their claim status over the phone as well. But I'll just take a look here and see if I can put a link in the chat as far as how you would just go through the easier credentialing system to be able to get access to their status.
I appreciate that. In the chat, I will put my email address in there. And if you just send me the link to my email also, I can save it in my archives and have the ability to refer other people who call me on that subject.
Okay, great. Thank you, Charles.
Appreciate it.
I'll send you an email on that.
Okay.
So I had a question that was sent to me, and it was, I believe this veteran had filed his claim, and it was multiple issue way back, I guess. The email was March, April timeframe, and like I said, it's multiple issue. And they're wondering if how the VA rate them, like, do they wait to rate every single condition for the veteran to hear the status of his claim, or do you guys rate, you know, like, let's say it's me and I have multiple issue, but there's condition that there's already like medical issues and everything. Do they have to wait to hear for a rating, or like, wait for QTC to do the exam before they hear anything? Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think I do understand. So I think especially right now, when we're still going through this process of trying to get all of the examinations in, if a veteran submits a claim with multiple conditions, we're trying to move forward on the claim the earliest point that we can. So we are reviewing those claims and determining if we are able to grant something or increase a disability rating. We are doing what's called a partial rating. So we are rating part of the claim. So if there's like 5 conditions and we have 2 conditions where we have enough information to grant something or give an increase, then we are moving forward on those as we find them to try and give the veteran a benefit or an increased compensation payment at the earliest point. Now, that isn't our normal process. We do try and generally wait for all the examinations to come back and get a completed claim with all, a determination on all of the conditions all at once. But we realize we're living in very, very unique times right now, as far as examinations and, you know, there's just a lot of things that are occurring out in the world right now where it's really difficult for, you know, everything to happen all at once. So we're trying to address it as best we can through a partial rating where the veteran might receive that, you know, an indication where a condition is deferred for a decision. And if it's deferred for a decision, it means that the claim has not been completed yet. We'll come back later and address that particular claim.
Okay, thank you. I think that will answer the question.
Okay.
And then the other one that was asked via email is that I think I know the answer, but I just want to confirm that, you know, if the veteran had indicated, you know, whether they're dying, they are homeless, etc., they have priority and getting their claim expedited, correct? Or like I believe it was on the presentation, it's 131.5 days for the processing time. Is that for just a single condition? Or is that for multiple, like, disability claim? Does that make sense? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, no, thank you. Yes, that's a good question. So in general, and this is just on average, the average claim is completed in the 131.5 days. So about 4 months, you know, we'll complete the claim on average. There might be more complex claims, or, you know, if there's a lot of conditions or we're waiting on, like you mentioned, examinations that may not be in yet. We'll try and do a partial rating, but that claim continues. So it's adding to the time. So the claim will keep that running. And so some claims take longer than 135 days. You know, that average is basically saying half are longer than that and half are less than that. So we are providing, you know, about 50% in less than 135 days. So that's just an average. But your question regarding the priority, so if a veteran notes, you know, on their application that they're homeless, or if there's some other indication in the record that we find that they're homeless, then we'll put a priority, what we call a flash, on the claim so that the system knows to distribute that claim first. So we were describing how the claim system, it moves claims across to the next available call agent. Like when you call into a call center, you're the next available person that you're gonna get to talk to. Well, that's sort of what the system is like, where it's gonna distribute those claims to the next available person. Doesn't matter where they work. You know, if they're in Houston or if they're here in Seattle, they'll get that claim next. If we have those priority indicators on there, then those claims are going to get distributed first, meaning they're not going to wait in line behind, you know, based on when we receive the claim. They're going to get distributed first for a review and a determination whether or not we can move forward on the claim. You know, of course, we still have to do the development process. We still have to make sure we're gathering all the information that we need to move forward on the claim. So we will act on behalf of the veteran to gather the proper information so we can grant the benefit to the veteran, but we will look at those particular claims first. Oftentimes with the terminal illnesses, we are able to make a determination based on the medical records that we already have. Oftentimes the veteran is already service connected, and, you know, unfortunately the condition has gotten worse, or there's an additional condition that has occurred, and we're oftentimes able to make a decision on those right away, where we don't need to wait for any sort of development. So that's really also helpful to know. You know, we're also screening for conditions that we know are terminal, and we will certainly address those earlier rather than later. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it did. Sorry, okay. I had asked people that are participating that if they want to ask questions ahead of time to go ahead and send it to me. The other one I got was regarding I think Cesar had, or Charles wrote it there, about the ID that the VA is providing. Is that only if you are enrolled in the VA or receiving any compensation? Let's say I'm a veteran and I just want the veteran status, you know, I don't have it on my driver's license. I know you can get the V designated. Is the VA ID, is that only for people that are service connected or accessing the VA and stuff like that?
Ma'am, are you referring to the VA ID card?
Yes, that's
Oh,
what
okay.
they're looking.
Yeah, so the VA ID card, that is moved to an online process. So it was previously only provided in person, where you needed to go to the VA hospital or, depending on where it was, to get that VA ID. But it has moved to an online process to get the VA ID card. And I think they're using the same type of credentialing system as the ID.me.
Oh, okay.
It is online through that process of how to apply for a VA ID card. And I'm just looking online here.
But is that only available for veterans that
Yes,
are,
only veterans.
okay, service? And then the other one is, you know how there's, I have a coworker yesterday that was trying to log on to the, is it Healthy Vets, something like that? But he is service connected as well as a retiree. And I was telling him that, oh, I was able to like go online and get my ID card, download my picture and everything. And he tried, he already have that DS log on like me. I told him, I said, I use my DS log on because I also go to Madigan for my treatment. So that he has to create a new ID. I mean, or can he just use the DS log on to access his information, whatnot?
So just to clarify, so the ID card itself, yep, and there's a link also to the information in there for
Yeah.
ID cards. So both these must be true for the ID card. You just need to serve on active duty in the reserves or National Guard, including Coast Guard, and received an honorable or general discharge. So those are the only two conditions. You don't need to be service connected. Those are really the only, generally those two conditions are true to get a VA ID card. Now it does, next it discusses how do I apply for a VA ID card. It asks you to sign in for a VA ID card using either that DS login that you mentioned or the My Healthy Vet or this ID.me account. So the ID.me account is the much simpler one that it like has you scan your driver's license in to verify your information. Or I think like snap a picture of it and send it in. And it's really quick to be able to get access to that. And they're able to verify information through state IDs and those sorts of things. So it should be pretty easy to gather that information. It does ask you for to have your social security number available. A copy of your DD-214 may be needed to upload, and a copy of your current valid driver's license. It has to be a government issued ID. So there are some steps in there to gather that information, and then they would send you the ID card after that information has been verified. So there certainly is a credentialing process to make sure that we're not just sending IDs out. But, they want to verify that you've been vetted through another ID process system, but we'd certainly want to provide those cards, because they do give lots of different benefits through lots of different organizations once you do have that VA ID card.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course.
Hi, this is Bob Clinton. I wonder if I could ask a little bit of a change of pace question.
Of course.
Hi, I have received miraculously in 2019 the granting of my claim. I waited 2 years to get that, and I finally received this 100% benefit. And one of the things that came with that was eligibility for the Specially Adaptive Housing Grant. Well, I've been suffering with that for about a year, and I advanced a lot of my own funds as my MS progressed. My question today, who could help me apply for that supplemental adaptive housing grant?
We can gather your information here and make sure that we can help with that. So generally the special adaptive housing and those sorts of things, it's an ancillary benefit. We can process that here at the Seattle Regional Office.
Well, I would appreciate that. It has been up the line. There's some special conditions with my application, so it is a complex case. So if I could somehow get the contact there here in Seattle and get a hold of you guys to give me a hand, it would be so much appreciated.
Of course, yeah, I'll put my email in the chat. Are you able to view that?
I believe so.
Okay, my name is Michael Payne, and I will put that there. And if you'd like to reach out to me, we can get that to move along.
All right, Michael, thank you so much for your help.
Of course, thanks for the question, Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have another question in reference to our veterans that are sent to hospice. Working with the SOS, the RSO, and the VA at JBLM, we found out that a lot of surviving spouses were never eligible to get anything, even though the husband might qualify for DIC, because the paperwork was never started while he was alive. So the Washington State Retiree Council, we did a staff letter and sent it to the Chief of Staff Army Retired Soldiers Council to see how can we resolve this issue, because when I went out and I talked to about 4 different hospices, and most of them, 2 of them were not aware that, well, I think that, let me go back, that if they belong what they call to the Army, we honor the Army's program. When that veteran is brought into the hospice, the VA will send the records and everything telling them that he's a veteran. But the problem is the social worker is not aware that because he is dying, that they need to contact a VSO or somebody at VA, or even guide the family so they can start the paperwork while he's alive, so they can start the process. So right now that there's nothing in place from the VA or even the hospices to try to get this paperwork started. So what I was told was by I think that you guys was to have the facility contact a VSO or have a VSO assigned to that facility, in voluntary basis, that when you have a veteran that they brought an intake, start the paperwork, because that's the reason they sent him to hospital. He's dying. And a lot of widows, because in the old days, the old way it was, the wife did not to know because he's the veteran. But now that the things have changed, so the wife should be aware, or at least somebody from the VA or social worker said, look, he's dying, get this stuff started, even though there's the spouse or the family doing it. But right now, there's nothing in place.
Thank you for the question. So I think what we could probably do is gather the specifics on that case and try and get some information, probably from the Veteran Health Administration. And if there's a specific point of contact that we can refer you to, their hospice program, because I know there is obviously a hospice service, and it might be contracted out, might be they're locally available, but I think there's some particulars that we'd probably need to gather and then refer you to a point of contact there locally.
Yeah, correct. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll reach out.
This is Fritz. I just want to jump in. If you need any help getting in touch with the VHA leadership, let me know.
Okay, thank you. Miguel, if you'd like to email me, put my email in the chat. It's michael.payne@va.gov.
Yeah. What I'll do, I could send you the staff letter that we put together. It must be supposed to go out in November to the Chief of Staff of the Army, because matter of fact, when we did last year, we had worked with the other service organization for the survival benefit
For
plan.
Jennifer, can we send this?
Yeah, so I'll send you the letter.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, I think the last slide that we had was on VRE. If we wanted to pivot to that, unless there's any other questions.
All right. Very good conversation. Good questions. Thank you. And thank you, Michael, and Allison for addressing those questions. So I just wanted to give a quick overview of the Veteran Readiness and Employment Program, otherwise known as Chapter 31. This program was recently changed. It used to be known as Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment. So if you're a service-connected veteran, you have a service-connected disability that limits your ability to work or prevents you from working, the Veteran Readiness and Employment Program can help. This program helps veterans explore employment options and address training needs. And in some cases, even family members may be eligible for this program. So, like I mentioned before, it's the whole intent of this program is to help veterans who are service-connected find gainful employment to live as independently as possible. So to be eligible for the program, veterans must be at least service-connected at 20% with a 20% disability rating and having with an employment handicap or a 10% rating with a serious employment handicap. So an example of a serious employment handicap could be service-connected for an amputation, for example. So what does Veteran Readiness and Employment provide? So, or what do they do for the veteran to assist them with finding gainful employment? So they can provide job training. They can help them out with job-seeking skills, training, resume development, and work readiness assistance, for example. They can also provide, depending on what the veteran in terms of employment is seeking, they can also provide them with training as far as technical training, on-the-job training, and non-paid work experience may be applicable. So what happens is once the veteran applies for the program, assuming that they're approved and they're enrolled into the program, they'll meet with a veteran readiness counselor or vocational rehabilitation counselor within the Veteran Readiness and Employment Division or program. And they'll work independently with that individual to develop a plan, an employment plan, which basically outlines, what steps the veteran needs to take in order to find gainful employment. So VRE, the program itself, employs over 1,500 employees within the Veteran Benefits Administration, and they deliver services through a network of over 350 VBA locations, including the 56 regional offices. They also network and provide veterans with assistance through 142 out-base offices. In Washington State, for example, we have an out-base facility in Spokane. We also have an out-base facility in Bremerton. So we're spread out, and the intent of that is to make sure that we're in areas where veterans may need our assistance. There's a lot of information available on the Veteran Readiness and Employment Program on the website, on the va.gov website. I don't know if you've been provided a copy with this PowerPoint, but on the PowerPoint itself, there's notes attached to each slide, which provides some websites that, that where you can obtain additional information on this program. So to be eligible for the program, veterans have to be service connected at least a 20% evaluation or a 10% evaluation for any serious employment handicaps. The form that they would complete to enroll into the program would be a VA Form 28-1900 form. And you can find that on va.gov's website. With that being said, are there any questions about the Veteran Readiness and Employment Program?
I do have a question. I myself am a recipient of voc rehab and also as a school certified official, I've helped student veterans enroll in the program. My concern is itself how the program and the folk rehab counselors themselves have this ideology that you're at their mercy. And even myself, it was a difficult time for me to get approved. I had to continuously appeal it for over a year to get approved. And my question is, what is the VA or anything doing for these problematic vendors that the student veterans may have in having to be at the mercy of voc rehab counselors that may not be so delightful or polite?
That's a really good question. So, obviously, like I mentioned before, the intent of the program is to assist the veteran who has a disability, assist the veteran with finding gainful employment and, live as independently as possible. So, part of that process is working with your vocational rehabilitation counselor and, developing an employment plan, so that eventually when you graduate from the program, you can not only find gainful employment, but you can hold it. What we don't want to help a veteran find a job and look at, or find a job and then they get that job. And then as soon as they find, as soon as they are employed, they, for whatever reason, have to leave that job because it's not suited for them. Or worse yet, they get relieved or fired from that job because it's not suited for them. So part of that process is working with the counselor, developing that plan. Now throughout that process, if there is a disagreement with the counselor in the development of that plan, obviously the veteran should let the counselor know, because the counselor will explain the intent of the plan that they are developing. And the counselor should provide a reason as far as why, whatever it is the veteran is asking for, why it wouldn't work based on the conversations that the veteran and the counselor have had. If I would say if you have a concern with what your counselor is recommending or providing you, there are, just let your counselor know so that you possibly could be reassigned to another counselor. But again, that should, the counselor should know that the veteran does not agree with the plan that's being developed so that the counselor can explain, the intent of the plan and why things are being developed the way that they are. Any other questions? Again, more.
Cesar?
Yes, Charles.
I was typing as you were asking if there were any more questions, so I quit typing and I'll give it to you verbally. Are the counselors for the Veteran Readiness and Employment Program tied into or have the assistance of the Washington State Department of Employment DVOPs and leavers who also spend their time getting jobs for veterans?
That's a great question, and Charles, I would have to get back with you on that. I do know that locally, for example, our Veteran Readiness and Employment Division does collaborate with the Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs. They also collaborate with a lot of schools and job services within Washington State. So, Charles, if I may, can I get back with you on that? But to summarize, we do collaborate with, our state partners and with local resources to help that veteran find gainful employment.
You've got my email address already. I appreciate the communication.
Thank you. Great question.
I have a question, Jim Sims from VAC. As I read this, veteran with a bad conduct discharge can still qualify for these benefits? It says other than dishonorable. It's difficult for me to understand why a veteran with a bad conduct discharge should be eligible for all these benefits associated with VRE.
Right. Thank you. So when it says right there that for veterans with a discharge under conditions other than dishonorable, so essentially, you know, as long as the veteran was not discharged with a dishonorable discharge, then they may be eligible to apply.
Oh, I was afraid that was the answer. Thank you.
Yep. And if you go to the actual website, the VA Veteran Readiness and Employment website, it gives a really nice breakdown of who is eligible for benefits. And one of the things that it says right there is that it's pointed out that you didn't receive a dishonorable discharge.
Cool. All right. So, do we have any additional questions? Have you received any questions via email that anyone has submitted?
Okay, so before I turn it over to our director, Pritz Navaratnasingam, I just wanted to open it up one more time for any questions about anything that we talked about today. I know there was a lot of information.
Cesar, this is Rufus Hofer. I do have one quick question, and it's really not anything you covered, but at what point in time do you expect the VA offices or the central office or the regional office to open?
Great question, and I'm glad.
What kind of guidance are you waiting for? Federal guidance, state guidance, the governor's mandate? I'm just not quite sure what it takes to get the place open.
Yes, sir. No, that's a really great question. And before I answer it, I do want to say that this particular subject is added on the notes for the last slide. So the question slide that you're seeing displayed right now, if you look at the notes, it does provide information on when we are opening up. But to answer your question, so we currently are open. Our office is open. We've always been open, even during the pandemic. We've always been open. It's just physically at that time, we were not seeing veterans in our office face to face. However, now that has changed. Our office currently is open for face-to-face meetings with veterans. However, it is only at this point by appointment only. And if you would like to schedule a meeting, a face-to-face meeting with a benefits counselor, there's a website that you can click on, which I'm going to post in the chat, and you can schedule an actual appointment with a benefits counselor. And you also have the option not only to schedule a face-to-face appointment with a benefits counselor, but you also have an option to schedule a telephone interview with a benefits counselor. Mike, is there anything that you want to add to that? Anything I may have missed?
No, I think you covered it. So yeah, just to reiterate, we do have slots available for veterans to be seen in person at the Jackson Federal Building on the first floor. So again, it's by appointment only. The federal building itself is closed to the public, but it's open for appointments. So we are able to see veterans during those time slots. And it sounds like we're gonna post the link in the chat, and that's how you would schedule that. And again, the other option is to schedule a time slot for a local veteran counselor. So the benefits counselor would be able to go over, any questions that you have, just like if you were sitting, in the VA office, they'd be able to either schedule it through like a virtual conference like this, or it'd be a telephone conference. So those are options so that we can continue, seeing veterans and making sure that their questions are answered. The 800 line is continuing to take calls as well. If they do want to call the call center, that certainly is an option as well. But as Cesar was saying, we're continuing to process claims and certainly, moving claims forward as best we can. in the environment, but we are certainly still working.
Great question. Thank you so much for asking that, because we were going to bring that up just to inform everyone that we're now seeing veterans face-to-face at our regional office by appointment. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I will turn it back over to our director, Pritz Navaratnasingam.
All right, thanks. Hey, yeah, it does spent a couple good hours going over important information. I appreciate you asking, as Caesar said, some good questions and noted some follow-up that we need to do. So we'll make sure we get back to you with those follow-up action items. And thanks for everything today. And hopefully we were providing you the information that you needed. And yeah, I look forward to working with you. So nothing else from us. And again, we'll get back to you on the questions that are follow-ups. All right.
Thanks very much, Pritz.
Yeah, no problem.
Michael, Caesar, and Allison. Great presentation. And thanks very much to WDVA, Lisa, Gary, Raphael, and Heidi for facilitating this. And a special shout out to all you VAC members, Bob, Jim, Charles, Jerry, Lynn, and Rufus. It was your vision and your inspiration that brought this town hall and the subject of claims to the people that we serve, our veterans. So most of all, thanks for the veterans who attended this town hall. You had some outstanding questions. We hope this helps you, and we'd like to see you at our next town hall. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone, and happy Veterans Day. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Fritz. Thank you, VA Regional Office, Caesar, Michael, and Allison. Thank you so much.
We want to also thank all of our attendees as well too for bearing patience in the beginning and just for sharing so many great questions. So we'll upload this recording here on our YouTube channel soon. So those that weren't able to attend will be able to view and hear kind of some of these great answers and responses and questions as well. And we'll make sure we send that link out. And we do have a couple events upcoming. Lisa, do you want to reference our Women Veterans event that we have upcoming, and as well as, and I'll nod to Asia Pacific Veterans Forum that we have on the 29th as well, which can be fun.
Yes, so the Women Veterans Committee is hosting a coffee session this Thursday at 10 o'clock. It's just a session where we are going to check with each other and learn from each other what is working, dealing with the pandemic, and especially those that are also not only saddled with work, but homeschooling their children. So I will send everybody the link to our meeting on Thursday. And I hope to see you guys Thursday. Thank you again so very much.
Okay, that slideshow is going to be distributed?
Yes, I will send it this afternoon. So everybody who signed up for this virtual town hall will get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. And as Gary mentioned, it will be posted in our website, the link to the YouTube channel that will show for those who have missed it.
Great job, Lisa, Gary, Raphael, Heidi. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of the week.
Thanks, Lisa. Good job.